All three major Wall Street indices end at record highs as investors shrugged off concerns related to a US government shutdown that has entered its second day. The S&P 500 ended above the mark of 6,700 while Nvidia's rally sends the Nasdaq past 22,800. Asian markets that have opened today are also largely higher, tracking gains on Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty, though, is indicating a start with a negative bias for our own markets. Oil prices fall 2% overnight to fall to a 4-month low due to concerns about oversupply in the market ahead of a meeting of OPEC and allies over the weekend. Gold prices too retreat slightly from record high levels below the mark of $3,850. Abu Dhabi-based international holding company will acquire a 41.2% stake in Indian financial services firm Sammaan Capital in a deal valued at 8,850 crore rupees. An open offer has also been triggered, but the stock, though, is still in the F&O ban. It's the final trading day of the week, and we are back with you on Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Hormuz Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off this morning, and the ones that are open are doing fairly well for themselves. The Hang Seng, though, is a marginal underperformer, 0.6% lower on the Hang Seng. The Taiwanese index also trading with gains of around 0.3%. But the real action, though, is coming from Japan. The Nikkei is up 700 points currently and continues to trade at record high levels, now closing in on the mark of 46,000 is the Nikkei. The South Korean markets are shut on account of a holiday, as are the markets in China. So as of now, the action coming in from Japan being the outperformer in the Asian markets, while Hang Seng being the only aberration. Pull up the GIFT Nifty as well. That will give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off. Well, after the very sharp moves that we saw on Wednesday, a bit of a pause is what the implied open is currently suggesting. A 16-point downtick is what the implied open is suggesting. But to set you up for today's trade, our research team is here to tell you more about the trade setup and the stocks that are likely to be in the news today. First up, Gaurav is joining in with all the market cues we need to watch out for. Gaurav, good morning. What are some of the important aspects you're watching out for today?
Well, yes. When we look at the Asian market, as you mentioned earlier, that the Hang Seng that actually increased almost by 1.6% in the last trading session, but currently it is struggling. But at the same time, Japanese market, it is soaring up in trade. At the same time, when we look at the US market now, this was second consecutive day where they ended in green. And at the same time, this is actually the second day when government shutdown is still going on. As per Bloomberg, now Trump says that he has an unprecedented opportunity and will look at which democratic agencies to cut. So definitely that is something that we will be watching out for, because on the one hand there is government shutdown which is going on, and on the other hand we are seeing US markets which are soaring up in trade on everyday basis. When we look at some of the commodities now, gold that actually ended its 6-day winning streak. It got pulled back from that 3,900 per dollar level. Silver that also went down almost by 2% in the last trading session. It was last seen at around 46.5 levels. When we look at Nifty, we saw Nifty actually broke its 8-day losing streak, and in the last trading session it was up more than 0.8%. At the same time, open interest that also suggests that there is put option interest building up around 24,800 level, and the call option interest building up around 25,000. So that is the level that we will be watching out for. On the downside 24,800 and on the upside 25,000. On the same time, when we look at Bank Nifty, that increased almost by 1.3% because RBI maintained its repo rate, and that is the reason why we will be also watching out on how the bank stocks are going to perform, given that their pre-quarterly updates, they will also start coming now. When we look at some of the positive developments, we saw that the direct air services connecting points from India to China, that will begin, and Indigo, now they have announced that they will be beginning this service as early as 26th of October. So on the stock specific, we will be also watching out on this stock and also on the aviation space, but definitely watching out on these levels that I mentioned earlier.
Interesting, Gaurav. Thank you for that update. Over to Upasna now, who would list out the stocks that you need to keep an eye out for today. Upasna, good morning.
Good morning. Well, a lot of auto stocks will be in focus today on the back of September auto sales. First up, let me start with Maruti Suzuki. The total sales is up 2.7%, which is largely in line with the poll. TVS Motors is the next one on the counter. The total sales has seen an uptick of 12%, again largely in line with the poll. And Hero MotoCorp The total sales is up nearly about 8% on a one-year basis, slightly above our poll. Now, Coal India also came with its business update for the month of September. The production is down about 3.9% on a one-year basis. So overall, it's a weak update. VMart Retail reported its Q2 update. The total revenue has seen an uptick of 22% on a one-year basis. CSB Bank, again in focus on the back of its Q2 update, the total deposits has seen a healthy growth of 25% on year-on-year basis. Next up is Tata Power. The ARM signs power purchase agreement with Tata Power Mumbai Distribution to set up a 80 megawatt firm and renewable energy project, and the total capex for this is around 1200 crores. Sammaan Capital also in focus today as IHC, which is a global investment company, has entered into an agreement to invest $1 billion in the company. RITES also in focus on the back of order win. The company has received work order from Damodar Valley Corporation. Nearly about 36.2 crore is the work order worth. Lastly, Crompton will also be in focus as company has received LOA worth 4.7 crore from Madhya Pradesh Urja Vikas Nigam to supply solar water pumping system. So all in all, we'll be looking out for all these stocks which will be on our radar today.
Important stocks there. Upasana, thank you for that update. Lastly, Mangalam joins in with cues from the F&O space. Mangalam, good morning. Some rebound finally, but is the F&O data indicating more?
Well, it's an interesting setup that we have because, on October 1st or the day 1 of October series, we saw a big move on the frontline indices. The Nifty was up 1%, led higher by the Nifty Bank, which was up 1.5%. And it was led by not only the benign RBI policy or important comments coming in from there, but also reduced FII selling in cash. So FII sold about 1,600 crores in cash, whereas the DIs went ahead and bought 2,900 crores. So on a net basis, there was a 1,400 crore worth purchase. On a headline basis, you would say that after this big an up move, we still didn't see a big amount of FII purchase in index futures. Well, yes, because on a index futures basis, they sold about 128 crores, but that was mostly directed towards the Nifty. They turned incremental positive on the Nifty Bank, where they bought about 668 crores. So that's a positive. And they added 1,900 long contracts and 2,700 short contracts. So the long exposure, which was at 6%, has only inched mildly higher to about 7%. So that's something we will be watching out for very, very closely. 24,800 put, that's seen a fair amount of writing, as is the 24,700 put, which tells you that after this up move that we've seen, maybe, the support for the market is around the 24,750 to 24,800 mark. But on the way up, there are some resistances because we have seen some writing at the 24,950 call and the 25,000 call. And the put call ratio too has moved closer to 1.2, which is the higher end of the range. On the way up for the Nifty, where we are right now versus where we can go, there are some important resistances on a technical basis. The 50-day moving average, the 100-day moving average, and the 200-day moving average come all in the next 150 points. So that's an important congestion zone to cross. For the Nifty Bank, it crossed the 50-day moving average. The next level to watch out for is the 100-day moving average, which is closer to 55,700. Two stocks I'm watching out for. Sammaan Cap, obviously on account of the fundraise announcement that has come in, but the stock continues to stay in F&O ban. And RBL Bank, on day 1 of the series, a new series, it's gone back into F&O ban. So that's another stock I'll be watching out for.
Mangalam, thank you for that update. Sammaan Capital will indeed be the stock to watch out for today. And this is after IHC announced that it will be acquiring a controlling stake in the company. Gaurav is back with us with more details on this Sammaan Capital transaction. So, Gaurav.
Well, yes, definitely a big positive for Sammaan Capital because Abu Dhabi's IHC is going to acquire majority stake. They have entered into a definitive agreement to acquire 41.2% stake in the bank. At the same time, they will be investing 8,850 crores for this stake. Remember now, when we look at the transaction now, this actually marks their official entry in the Indian financial space, and at the same time this is also the largest ever primary capital infusion that investors have seen in terms of NBFCs for Indian market. When we look at the overall acquisition, company said that they will be acquiring and they will also have the majority control, so they will be tagged as promoter. At the same time, they will also have rights to appoint majority of the board of directors. What they have proposed is that now board has approved to issue preference issue of around 33 crore shares, which will be worth 4,587 crores, and 31 crores warrants which will be issued, which will be worth 4,262 crores. When we look at the transaction, this will also trigger the open offer, and for this Now, company says that post open offer, based on the subscription, the stake will vary anywhere between 41.2% to 63.4%. When we look at now what next we should be looking at is that the EGM, which is scheduled on 29th of October, where the shareholders' approval will be taken for preference issue and also for the amendment in AOA. When we look at the FY27 goals, we have already seen company has given very optimistic goals. They say that 1 lakh crore of loan book is what they want to achieve, which says around 27% CAGR growth from here on. They also say that the credit cost is likely to be around 1% on a steady state, which was last time when we saw it was at 3%. So definitely there are some optimistic goals that the bank has also given. When we look at the valuation, that is another catching point to see here is that when we look at the valuation, that is at 0.6 times, and Sammaan Capital has always been below 1 time price to book. So definitely that is also something that we should be focusing on. But at this moment, a very big positive that IHC is going to acquire 41.2% stake in Sammaan Capital.
Indeed, the big news coming in last evening. Gaurav, thank you for that update. Take a short break, but just before we do that, some market opinion from Nilesh Shah of Kotak Mahindra AMC on the IPOs and the performance, the FPI outflows and a lot more. Listen into some excerpts from that.
With the barrage of IPOs, undoubtedly there is no worry on the quality side. SEBI has done a fantastic job on ensuring that only quality IPOs come. Institutional investors also have done a reasonably good job in ensuring that they invest in reasonably valued IPOs. Many of the IPOs which have opened at a discount had virtually no institutional participation. So my recommendation to investors, please don't make mistake on your own. Learn from our experience and go for those IPOs where you believe there is a reasonable institutional participation. 3-6 months remain challenging. The FPIs are on the selling spree. They are saying for last 5 quarters, your earnings growth is single digit. Your valuations are at premium to historical averages. And most importantly, you are getting hit by US tariff and geopolitics. They are absolutely right in saying this. Generally in festival season, we have seen some amount of redemption to either buy a house or buy a motor car or buy jewelry. And ultimately, wealth is there for spending. So there will be probably similar intensity of gross flows, but the net flows will be lower because of the redemptions for consumption or spending. I believe there is a higher allocation towards precious metal, and many people don't want to invest in precious metal directly, and which is why they are coming into multi-asset allocation fund. We expect flows to remain strong, but please remember, we are not here to give exit to FPIs or to promoters. We will do what is right for our unit holders.
Welcome back onto some global market action. Then it was a positive session for Wall Street on Thursday. The Dow Jones ending in the green. The S&P 500 also recovered from the day's low. The Nasdaq was the outperformer though, ending 0.4% higher, closing in on that mark of 23,000. CNBC's Angelica Peebles gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were up across the major indexes in Thursday trading, despite a government shutdown for the last 2 days. The Dow climbing 79, the S&P 500 up 4, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq rising 89. OpenAI finalized a secondary share sale, bringing its value to $500 billion, which would put it ahead of SpaceX as the world's most valuable private company. That's according to a person familiar with the transaction. CNBC's source says the company authorized up to $10.3 billion in shares for sale, but that only about 2/3 of the amount ultimately changed hands, and that's being seen internally as a vote of confidence in the company's long-term strategy. And Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway announced Thursday that it will buy Occidental Petroleum's petrochemical unit, OxyChem, for $9.7 billion. The all-cash deal is expected to close in the fourth quarter, and it's Berkshire's largest since 2022, when it paid $11.6 billion for the insurer Allegheny. Occidental said that it will use some of the funds to pay down debt and help restart the company's stock buyback program. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Angelica Peebles, thank you for that update. Now, as the shutdown in the U.S. government nears the end of its second day, even as U.S. President Donald Trump is set to follow through and permanently fire a significant number of federal workers, CNBC's Iman Javers has this report.
On day 2 of the government shutdown, the administration is really dispensing with carrots and going mostly with sticks in its negotiations with minority Democrats up on Capitol Hill. President Trump posting on social media that he's going to be meeting with his OMB director, Russ Vought, today to find Democratic priorities to close down during the shutdown. Here's what he said. I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. Now, that reference, Carl, to Project 2025 is about the conservative blueprint for downsizing and reorienting the federal government that was seen as so controversial during the presidential campaign last year that President Trump said at the time he didn't know anything about it and had nothing to do with it. Clearly now, though, he is using it as a threat to Democrats to show what they could lose if they don't come around on the spending bill that he wants. And on CNBC this morning, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent sought to put the blame on Democrats for any damage to overall GDP that could result from this shutdown, and he raised the specter of increasing inflation.
They want to put this inflationary impulse into President Trump's already strong economy. You know, the economy is growing at 3.8%. We don't need 1.5 trillion pumped in. You know, the Democrats seem to love inflation.
Now, bottom line today so far is about ratcheting up the rhetoric and the pressure on Democrats in an effort to get a deal by this administration, but it's not at all clear that's going to be enough to break the logjam. The government is going to remain closed today because the Senate is not in session, so the next opportunity for votes will be tomorrow, guys.
Iman Javers, thank you for that update. Let us now also listen in to Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who said that the U.S. GDP could take a hit as a result of this government shutdown.
The spending cuts that occurred in the One Big Beautiful Bill were the largest in history, and you know, we're not going to go back on them. That I came out from behind my desk and wanted to join the government to right the ship and get our fiscal house in order. We were left with a mess. It was the largest deficit when we weren't in a recession, weren't at war, and we are fixing the deficit. And you know, there could be a discussion, but this isn't the way to have a discussion. Shutting down the government and lowering the GDP. We have a 3.8% GDP, and when the Democrats shut down the government, that we could see a hit to the GDP, a hit to growth, and a hit to working American.
On to our special segment, Trump Watch. Dia is joining in with more details on that.
Good morning. Big moves out of Washington, where the federal government shutdown entered its second day on Thursday, with neither side showing signs of compromise over funding the government. U.S. President Donald Trump is weighing plans to cut thousands of federal jobs. The White House says the move is aimed at increasing pressure on Democrats to end the government shutdown. And White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told reporters the cuts are likely going to be in thousands. Trump said he will be meeting with his budget director, Russell Vought, to discuss possible reductions. Now, at the same time, the administration has frozen $26 billion earmarked for Democratic-leaning states. Now, that includes $18 billion for transit projects in New York and $8 billion for green energy projects across 16 Democratic-run states, including California and Illinois. California's Governor Gavin Newsom is also making headlines. He has now warned that any university in the state that signs on to a Trump administration proposal could lose billions of dollars in state funding. Now, the proposal offers preferential federal funding in exchange for caps on international students and other conditions. Newsom also says California will not bankroll schools that agree to this deal. Meanwhile, U.S. trade officials are considering easing tariffs on Scotch whisky. This follows discussions between President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer during last month's state visit. The UK argues that reducing tariffs could also benefit the American bourbon industry since it supplies casks to Scotch producers. And in New York, a federal court has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from redirecting nearly $34 million in anti-terrorism funds. And the money was awarded under a post-9/11 program to help protect against chemical, biological, radiological and explosive threats. That's all for today. Now back to you, Hormuz.
Thank you so much for that update, Dia. Take a short break. Cues from the commodities market on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. Oil prices, though, continue to trend lower today.
Well, absolutely. Just about holding $60 a barrel right now. We've seen 2% of a decline come in yet again. And with that, crude is now trading at a 4-month lows. Well, what you're looking at is increase in supplies coming in from everywhere. OPEC could increase supplies by 500,000 barrels per day. That decision would come in on 5th of October. We also are looking at Saudi Arabia by its own also restoring what it had previously suspended in terms of supplies. And then you have U.S. crude and gasoline stockpiles rising. Iraq's Kurdish oils are also expected to resume exports here. And then there's a bit of a risk-off sentiment with what's happening with the U.S. government shutdown. So there's no reason to buy into crude is how the markets look at it. But it's not just crude. If you look at the other precious metals, we're looking at some profit-taking here as well. So whether it's gold or silver off its highs that we saw in the previous couple of sessions here, there is strong investor interest because of economic uncertainty, but we have seen some profit taking on the higher levels. The only thing that I see trading firm on the screen right now is copper. That one is trading at a 2-month highs.
Copper at 2-month highs as well. Manisha, thank you for that update. Now, India and China have agreed to resume direct flights as ties normalize following 5 years of tensions after the Galwan clashes. Indigo Airlines has announced that it will resume the direct flights from the 26th of October. Indigo's announcements came shortly after the Ministry of External Affairs announced that the two countries have reached an agreement for the same. Shifting focus now, Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit India in December for an annual summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, with the Kremlin saying that full preparations are underway. President Putin warned that the United States against pressuring India to stop buying Russian oil, saying that New Delhi will not allow itself to be humiliated in front of anyone. Now, Putin also lauded Modi, calling him a balanced, wise and nationally oriented leader. The Russian president last visited New Delhi in 2021, with both nations having a mechanism under which India's Prime Minister and the Russian President hold a summit meeting annually to review the entire gamut of ties. And with that, we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast. From me and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side to set you up for the day's trade.